Welcome back. We've got a seventh grade PSSA sampler for sub, and this is called Breakfast with Mrs. Roosevelt. Ooh, it's going to be a good one. So let's get into it. Norms to be observed right now. Please follow along with each slide. Those without a computer should sketch, doodle, and mimic in the paragraph packet question what is happening on the screen. All right. Please put that by the word without. Put that purple dog by the word without. Suggestions for viewing. This is for the adult in the room. Turn this video up loud enough so that everyone can hear. Pause the video when prompted, as there may be an opportunity to discuss or clarify the directions or expectations. Everybody in class, can you please put the dog by expectations? Dog's got a long neck. So this is meant to look like the PSSA. So it's got little PSSA continue here. Can you put that cat by the continue, please? Then go on to slide 5. If you do not have a computer, I'll be taking notes and completing my packet. Those packets are on the desk, uh, in Mr. Surface's desk, on Mr. Surface's desk. Completing my packet. There's a doggy right there. Slide 6. Take a moment, please, to write your name on this slide. I'm going to write mine in blue. First name, Mr. Last name, Surface. Boom. Could you please take a moment to write your name as well? All right. The substitute has been asked to contact Mr. Surface in the event that a student refuses to follow directions. So if there's this refusal, whether it's coming in the room, whether it's to follow along, whatever it is something we got to call everybody in today because we got to depend on y'all to be at your best. Slide 8. All right, if you could please put this red fish in the least dirty of my 3 fish bowls. All right, no copying that PSSA material when it finally gets here. The substitute has been asked to contact Mr. Surface in the event a student refuses to follow directions. Right by refuses again. Please don't do that, y'all. All right, take this sad button. If you could put it on begin the test down here. Whoops. Get down there, sad button. Norms to be observed right now. This is a 100-point grade and will be due by the end of the period. That's not the end of the day, right? That's not the end of the week. It's the end of this period here. Failure to fully attempt to complete the work by class's end will result in a 0. Please don't do that to your grade. Please don't do that to yourself, please. So some of the options that you have when you do eventually take those PSSAs are the pointer. Please remove that red triangle on top of the pointer, please. Right? That helps you navigate everything else on the screen. Slide 13. The information in the article that we're going to read today prepares you for both the PSSA and to live a more present, fulfilling life. And a little more informed about history. Can't hurt you. 14. If you could drag this hashtag over to the little drop down arrow up here. That drop down arrow shows you all the questions that are involved in this particular section, as well as some of the paragraphs that might coincide with those questions. Very useful. Slide 15. These were chosen to help you feel and be as confident as possible for the big state test when it gets here in a month and change. Let's get there. Let's do it. We're ready. So if you can drag this green compass on top of this X here, what does that help you to do? X out the questions that you know are wrong. Process of elimination can be very useful in getting it right. All right, everybody. The dog is telling you, focus now. Put that dog by the word focus. Let's do it. The race car, I'd like you to put on top, first put it on top of this highlighter. Notice how they're highlighting different parts of the question. You can highlight different parts of the text, right? That highlighter where the race car is now, icon up there, will help you to take apart each question. All right, keep focused. You're doing great. You may also take notes on a little post-it pad. It's right up here in this little yellow fella up there. Put that yellow block on top of that post-it pad. Focus. And then there's this little line here, and I'd like you to highlight it up here. It says like line reader, like that. Ooh, instead of blocking it out entirely, let's highlight it, huh? Ay, ay, ay. And that'll help you follow along, keep track of what you're reading to be careful for this big high stakes test. All right, let's focus, focus, focus. So, what are some important points of view in the story? Well, let's start just by highlighting some of the big, let's say the four biggest words in yellow. Let's get the four biggest words in yellow. All right, please take the time to do so. And I'm going to put a little background song on for it. Whoops. Here we are. Badoop, badoop. All right, four biggest. All right. Let's go ahead and you find one big word that you feel that we should get. Get one big word that you feel we should get. Take the time to do so now. Excellent. Let's get some of the medium sized words that help answer what are some important points of view in this story. Could you please find, let's say, three medium sized words? Take the time to do so now. And let's find one more on your own. Excellent. Now, let's look for some little words that tell us a little something about the story. Let's find two little words together. Oh, I see snow here. Yes. And I see president. Yes, indeed. Can you please find two um, green, other two small green words that give us a little idea about this story and what some of the points of view in it might be? Finding two little words. Excellent work. So, drag the red dots over two key words in the prompt. Characters and stories have different points of view. Compare and contrast two different points of view in Breakfast with Mrs. Roosevelt. Use evidence from the text to support your answer. Please take a moment now. Where should those two red dots go? What are some important words? Excellent work. All right, slide 6. Let's get into it. This is going to involve a character named Gracie and Eleanor. Slide 27. I'd like you to take the time to read the text using this link or your packet if you're computerless. This link will show you what it looks like in the story itself, so when you follow along, it's relatively easy. So, this is taking 10 minutes. Notice how it says 10 minutes on the slide. I would like your substitute to give you 10 minutes, possibly to read the story along with you for the first time with everyone else. All right, so please take these next 10 minutes to read the story. Miles, can you keep it down? All right. So if you're computerless on slide 28, please make similar, if not copies of the notes that you see from your slides into your packet. We're going to be focused a lot on point of view, but that won't be the only thing we're focused on. Now we're going to go back through the story a second time because it's a high stakes test and it's worth taking the time to do so. As we go along, we're going to highlight different things that help us to answer bits about point of view, the different characters, etc., etc. All right, so you'll want to keep that yellow mustard going on and then say Mrs. Roosevelt. Well, that's the Eleanor from earlier, right? And we saw some of those eggs, right, in the word cloud, so we know we've got a little bit of breakfast coming at us too. All right, slide 30. Gracie pulled her foot from the snowdrift, bent over, and scooped a handful of wet white flakes from inside the top of her boot. Darn! Well, that's not the kind of language that Grandma Olson would like to hear. But Gracie was as angry as a 14-year-old could be. Here she was at 5:30 in the morning, a cold, snowy morning no less, trying to get to work, and her boots were filled with snow. Gracie sighed. Can't do much about it, she thought. Snowflakes licked at her lips as she trudged along Curry Hollow Road. It was a mile walk from Grandma and Grandpop Olson's to the Allegheny County Airport, where Gracie and the morning setup girl at the airport coffee shop. That was her job, to set up the coffee shop. Uphill both ways, Grandma Olson would say whenever Gracie complained about her daily trek. Then she'd give Gracie a big hug and say, "You're a good girl, Gracie. You're a good girl." Oh, Grandma Olson. The Depression was still affecting the country in 1937, and to help out at home, Gracie applied for a part time job at the Allegheny County Airport. She was hired to work from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., Monday through Friday, as a setup girl. She earned 50 cents a week. Slide 31. Let's see if we can't talk a little bit about this prompt. All right, first things first, drag those two red dots over here to prompt. So let's take a moment and drag those two red dots to the two most important words in that prompt. Perhaps you found similar ones, perhaps different ones. Now, these two purple dots can go right up here next to Gracie. And what we want to do after we read this section is find a place for the purple dots to go. Gracie pulled her foot from the snowdrift, bent over, and scooped a handful of wet white flakes from the inside top of her boot. Darn! Not the kind of language Grandma Olson would like to hear, but Gracie was as angry as a 14-year-old could be. Here she was at 5:30 in the morning, a cold, snowy morning no less, trying to get to work, and her boots were filled with snow. Gracie sighed. Can't do much about it now, she thought. Snowflakes licked at her lips as she trudged along Curry Hollow Road. It was a mile walk from Grandma and Grandpa Olson's to the Allegheny County Airport, where Gracie was the morning setup girl at the airport coffee shop. Uphill both ways, Grandma Olson would say, whenever Gracie complained about her trek. Then she'd give Gracie a big hug and say, "You're a good girl, Gracie. Real good girl." The Depression was still affecting the country in 37, and to help out at home, Gracie applied for a part time job at the Allegheny County Airport. She was hired to work from 6 to 8 a.m., Monday through Friday, as a setup girl, and she earned 50 cents a week. So you notice that Mr. Surface along the way placed his two purple dots based on the two different, the joke that Grandma Olson said, and then why she made the joke. Sort of. You can connect those two, or you could connect some other parts. Take the time to do so now. Right, and you'll notice that this is a story that's written in third person point of view. Grandma Olson, she said that. You can move your orange dot there on slide 32. As Gracie approached the airport terminal, the night crew was busy shoveling the sidewalks around the buildings, and Gracie could hear the plows clearing snow off the runways behind the terminal. I guess the planes are grounded, she thought as she walked up the steps and into the terminal. The coffee shop was in a small separate area at the far end. Gracie barely noticed the few passengers in the waiting area as she rushed across the black and white tiled floor. Pulling off her gloves, Gracie reached into her pocket for the key to unlock the shop. She opened the door and switched on the light. The hands on the clock that hung over the long white counter seemed to frown at her as though they knew she was late. Gracie tossed her coat on the nearest chair and pulled off her boots. She found an old newspaper under the counter and stuffed it into the boots to help them dry out. Gracie relocked the door with the closed sign over the glass pane. She would turn the sign to open at 7 o'clock when the coffee shop was officially open for the day. Slide 34. Go ahead, Internet. 20 minutes late, Gracie muttered to herself as she reached for her apron. She thought of the chores she had to complete before the morning cooks arrived at 6:30. I'll put the coffee first today, Gracie decided. Some of the night crew might need to warm them up if they've been shoveling out all night. Oh, that's a pretty thoughtful gesture, to think of others even when you're running behind. After making the coffee, Gracie busied herself setting the tables and filling the salt and pepper shaker as a sudden sharp tapping on the door startled her. The pepper she was pouring spilled over the countertop. Sneezing, Gracie jumped off the red leather stool where she'd been sitting and walked toward the door. A fashionably dressed lady stood facing her. I'm sorry, Gracie began after unlocking and opening the door, but the coffee shop doesn't begin service until 7 o'clock. I'm Malvina Thompson, said the lady before Gracie could close the door. I'm the personal assistant to Mrs. Eleanor Roosevelt. I hope you can help us. On slide 35. So let's take a moment on slide 36 and think a little bit more about points of view. Let's drag our red dots over here to where the prompt will eventually appear. Our purple dots up here by where the text will eventually appear. And we'll have this little orange dot right down here where the picture will eventually appear.